Hello and welcome. Please give me a sec as I finish the setup and we will be good to go. I hope you've all had a good weekend. Tonight finds you well. Hello. Where's my lights? Kind of need those. Okay, so here's the lights. Let's get these plugged in. So I've got a couple things to talk about. Then we're going to jump into a whole bunch of reactions. And then Stardew Valley. I got to check Twitch to see if Twitch is doing its thing again. Probably is. Yep, it is. Why wouldn't it? Alright, so that takes care of Twitch for now. So, where was it? Oh yeah, so I've got a couple things to talk about. We're doing a whole bunch of reactions because I need to pad some content because as it turns out, I'm going to have to disappear for another couple of weeks. To those of you who are new, I live in the middle of the country. I am the only member of my family who does, which means when the family decides to do things, I get stuck dealing with it. And from the amount of times that I complain about them demanding attention and interrupting the stream remotely, streaming while they're able to, well, interrupt directly is a bad idea. It is frustrating, but that means that we're going to be doing a fair amount of extra reaction content, and I am going to attempt to make at least one video to help fill in the time for those 2 weeks. So I will be here for this total weekend of streaming. I will be here for next total weekend of streaming. I will be gone for 2 weeks. Then the last weekend of July, I will be back, and then we'll be back to business as usual. So, yeah, lots of fun. Now, I do have a couple things. An update on the Rabbit AI thing. Brave is getting ready to lap Rabbit AI in terms of actual functionality. Hello, Blue Kitty. Welcome. So, yeah, Brave has ended up preparing to... I already said that. Sorry. So, Brave has their own AI called Leo. It's a privacy AI. It doesn't save your information back to their servers. It runs in your browser, both in phone and online. Also, I should say, this is not a sponsored segment, but it could be. Brave, I sent you a message on Twitter. I'd love a partnership. So anyways, their AI Leo operates in their browsers on both mobile and PC. They're currently, it is better at searching the web than Google Gemini is. It is much more reliable at that. I have personally tested that. Now, you still want to double check your information, but it does better than Leo. Brave Lab Rabbit when it launched. Yeah, okay, fair. Leo has always been pretty good as far as being an AI goes. But it has basic in-browser document integration already, where like if you open a PDF in the browser, it can read it and understand a document. if you open Google Documents and that compatible stuff, it can read them. They're working on some other stuff, but the big thing that's going to be the game changer that they are currently testing in their prototype models is the ability to connect it to any model that you want. This can be a remote one, so basically it's using ChatGPT, but using the Brave privacy system, or it can use a model that you have set up and created and trained and integrated with your own stuff. So it will unlike what I was working on doing, it will involve very little setup, and then you just have it there functional. So they're about to do, the only thing it won't be able to do is like call an Uber and things, which I'm a little nervous about having an AI do anyways, but that's just me. But yeah, so the Brave AI is really about to just tell Rabbit, and not just Rabbit, but also Humane, hey, a browser company can do your job better than you can. And yeah, I'm not sponsored by Brave, but I've used them for a long time. I am a Brave creator on the sites that's compatible with, so I should double check to make sure they haven't expanded that, which just means if you're using Brave ads, so it has regular ad blocking its own ads, I still get paid. Ramble, that quick update, and like I said, not sponsored, but could be sponsored. Brave, please. Now I actually want to run something by the stream before we get started that is basically me pulling a fat electrician or Brandon Herrera or someone with history. I discovered something neat and I want to run it by the stream. It is incomplete. I'm going, maybe I'll cut out the stream part. I don't know, but I would like to finish researching it and then put the information out there for everyone in a video and have that video up and ready to go for when, to go up while I'm gone. So this is, I did not know the origin of the Civil Air Patrol. I knew who they were. I knew what they do now. I lived out in the middle of nowhere, so Civil Air Patrol was actually part of our emergency services that we knew about and interacted with. Because it was better to get a plane out there than an ambulance. 5-hour fire department response time was wonderful. Or police. 5-hour police response time. Holy crap. Anyways, so I knew, I didn't really make fun of them like I know some people do, but I didn't know a whole lot about their origins, and their origins are just nuts. And it starts off sounding like it's going to be a disaster with a bunch. Basically, it started off as a club of wannabe pilots, wannabe combat pilots. They were private pilots who wanted to go out and LARP and sort of do the Civil War, the American Civil War thing of rich guy comes with a bunch of other people that he recruited. Now you give him a rank and a position in the military. And initially the military looked at him and like, we already have the Army Air Corps. It's becoming the Air Force. The Navy has their own planes. We don't need you. Go away. The mayor of New York, LaGuardia, who the airport is named after, looked at them and thought, this is a great idea. I'm immediately going to sign an executive order for the city of New York to recognize these flying civil service members and give them something to do, because I love this idea. And at this point, the military kind of looks at them like, all right, fine. We will put up with you. We're going to have a desk to handle this, and that's about it. And just kind of shuffle them off away. We don't, like I said, the military was not respecting them at all at this point. Then World War II hit. World War II hit, and that changed everything, because immediately the United States coast had a U-boat problem. Okay? The United States coast suddenly has, please stop trying to join the military. We know That's the thing. They wanted to be the military without going through the process of just joining the Air Force or the Navy as pilots. Anyway, so like I said, this sounds like it's going to end in disaster, but just wait for it. So, after all this, World War II starts. The United States immediately has a U-boat problem on the coast. The Navy has to run them down. The Navy and Air Force have to send out pilots searching, guarding the entire United States coast. And the Navy has to run them down because even with the Coast Guard building up, it's just not enough on its own. And so what ends up happening is them saying, all right, we need to do something. We need to do something quick because we need the Navy and Air Force to fight the war, not defend our coasts. And the Coast Guard just isn't enough to do it on their own with how aggressive these German U-boats are. And eventually, in the middle of this discussion, everyone slow turns over to the one guy sitting at the desk that's supposed to handle the Civil Air Patrol. And they're like, I got an idea. So they haul in a general who is a former World War I pilot, but even before the war was ended, he had been on desk duty. He's been a paper pusher forever. He's done logistics. He really hasn't done combat things. But they look at him and they go, all right, Major General, you are in charge of the Civil Air Patrol. They have been begging us for a reason for a reason to exist and for some legitimacy. You and them have 90 days to prove that you're worth it. We're going to give you some old depth charges and bombs, stuff that's too old or too small to really be of use to full military planes because they just don't pack the punch or have the reliability of modern equipment. But, you know, it's okay because we don't need them. And the little Piper Cubs, and I'm not exaggerating, they were actually using Piper Cubs, can't really carry a whole lot of weight anyways. So we're going to give you a bunch of them. You have 90 days to prove that the Civil Air Patrol can hunt down submarines for us and deal with the problem. And what happened is absolutely amazing because all these pilots are like, this is our chance to shine. And we're going to do so. We are going to prove that we can defend America in our, what at the time really was just a glorified flight club. And so they strap these things to the bottoms of their planes, to the wings. Some of them are sitting in the back seat with a guy to push them out the door and take off and start patrolling the coast. And in 90 days, these guys have chased off or targeted or alerted the coast to deal with so many submarines that the merchant vessels sunk was so drastic. I think it was cut down to, I'm still looking for the exact number. I think it was cut down to like a third what it was. That both the Air Force and the Navy looked at each other and said, you can't even argue with the results these mad lads are getting. We will supply them with as many of these baby depth charges and bombs as they need, so long as they can deal with it for us, and we can go fight the war. And there was just never any question about the existence of the Civil Air Patrol again. And you got to understand that these guys really were mad lads, because they weren't just planes sitting up there with a radio looking looking out for submarines, going, oh, there's a submarine. Navy, come do something. Coast Guard, come do something. These guys were actively attacking the submarines with these little bombs. Excuse me. With these little bombs and depth charges. And I would not put it past people to have put guns in the planes and just stuck them out the window to shoot at them. And these are planes that do not have bomb sights, that do not have any proper means of aiming their weapons. So they are dropping down to like 20 feet over top of this submarine in order to attack it. Over 60 pilots were killed in the line of duty, reporting as the submarine's anti-air guns returning fire because they were that close. And they're in these slow planes that are still made out of wood and canvas and easy targets for the submarines, but they're getting so close to bomb them. And then they're staying there because they don't have any other means to mark the target for when the Coast Guard or Navy or whoever shows up to deal with it. So they're just going to sit on their head and fly super tight circles where they can be easily shot at in order to make sure that the main military can find the submarines. So these guys are really sticking their neck out. And by the end of the war, there's over 100,000 pilots. There's over 100, and these are private pilots with private planes. So that's 100,000 aircraft in the air patrolling the coasts for submarines. And the Navy credits them with having found over 170, having found and chased away over 170 U-boats. And they were so bad and so aggressive and so good at their job, and there was just so many of them, that the German U-boat force started reporting back, we don't want to go to the American coast anymore. We don't want to deal with this because there's so many of these darn planes up there that just immediately start attacking us anytime we get close. Now obviously they still kept trying because, German military looks at them and they'll make someone go, but there were a lot of German subcommanders that just didn't want to deal with the American coast. And it's like, holy crap, if the Germans had ever made it to trying to land a force on the beach, there would be more planes in the air attacking them than the Germans would have soldiers on the ground invading, because of how many of these guys there were. It's absolutely nuts. And I obviously have some more stuff to look up, but like I said, that the military didn't even question it, is how good of a job they were at doing this, and started handing them other jobs. And it's the reason why, to this day, the Civil Air Patrol has continued to exist and had its mandates for emergency response, for training pilots, for operating in a means of making, taking on new private pilots and saying, here's how you're going to fly. Here's how you're going to fly safely. Hey, do you want to join? And yes, in the event of a true emergency, still going out and being mad lads to support the military if things have to happen. So yeah, I always thought as an emergency service, the Civil Air Patrol was pretty respectable and pretty neat. Learning how they managed to prove themselves to the United States is absolutely amazing, because that is a literal definition of thrown into the deep end and told to swim, and they turn into Olympians. Absolute respect. I think I just might cut this part up and upload it on its own, but like I said, I need to do research in order to make sure I get all the numbers right. Yeah, I want to have pictures up of some of this stuff, because there are some pictures of them doing like practice bombing runs and stuff, and you can see they are super close to the ground, and those little bombs that they're using are really tiny, and they're trying to sink submarines with them. So, for some definition of aircraft, there was a lot of weird and oh yes, because they're all private craft. The reason they're using Piper Cubs is, even though the Piper Cub was new at the time, it was still dirt cheap. And it's made out of balsa wood and canvas. Including the upgrade of White Rose original sniper in one instance, because, you might be right, because I still haven't sorted through it all, but there's some truly like, that deserves being nowhere near the Warzone aircraft that they were using. Well, Piper Cubs don't deserve being near Warzone, that they still took out there and traded actual fire with German submarines with. So like I said, I respected you before. All the respect to the founders who, for all intents and purposes, did the impossible. So yeah, that is, say, Pipers are a little, yeah, Piper Cubs still are around today. The only thing that's been changed is some like safety stuff, but yeah, they are still super cheap little airplanes that they're a pleasure craft. They're a personal pleasure craft. They have like 4 seats. So yeah, when I say small bombs, I mean like some of the stuff that they're dropping is like 20-pound bombs, when the United States military is dropping 500-pound bombs. So that's my spiel on just, like I said, I need to finish researching it to make sure I get it all right. I need to put together more. I just wanted to do a dry run and sort of geek out while I had it right here in front and center, and I just found it because that is not how I thought the Civil Air Patrol was formed. I thought it was like a Cold War thing where it was, you know, guard against the Reds type stuff. But nope, it was, we have a submarine problem, deal with it. And like I said, 90 days, no one questioned them anymore. How do you do that with the military breathing down your neck? The military questions everything. Hey, Spartan. So, yeah, that's that. Now we're going to get to reacting to other people doing the same thing. Like I said, we have a bunch of them because I'm trying to build up some momentum to help carry me through the 2 weeks I have to go. I have some exclusives. No, we don't need a receipt. We trust you. Well, it's like, we have this warehouse of all this old stuff we don't need. Here. Get rid of this for us. Throw it at the German submarines. You do it right, and the Marines get interested enough to tell the other three, let them cook. That could I don't know the details of how that happened. All I know is that the Air Force and Navy representatives didn't even question it when they looked at the results. They just said, all right, they can deal with it. We're going to fight a war. So, yeah, like I said, busy evening ahead of us. We've got 4 reactions, and then we're doing Stardew Valley. And I finally figured out what I'm doing for the June thank you. It will be the Sunday, so the next stream. I'm not going to say what it is. We are setting Steel Rising and Chrono Trigger to the side just for that stream, where hopefully, after some more reactions, again, momentum, there will be... I'm hoping that it will be a stream that you enjoy watching. Let me put it that way. So, with that said, 4 reactions. 1 Brandon Herrera, 2 Kentucky Ballistics, 1 Fat Electrician. Let me see. Are you going to pop up for us? You are going to pop up for us. Huzzah! So, there we go. Get out of the way. This came out a couple days ago. Brandon Herrera, bump stocks are so back. I think I know where he's going with this. This probably is going to get a little political. I'll try to stay fairly neutral on my side. I am actually kind of like of the opinion that bump stocks kind of like because they're a great way to waste ammo, but they are so inaccurate. Also, I can I'm decently good at just bump firing without the need of a device, but that's just me. But yeah, I do support the decision though, just because it's such an arbitrary take away something because we can decision. All right, that's my lead in. Brandon, take it away.
Man, I love it when I get to give a new gun law update that's
Why do I not have sound?
entirely good news. Man, I love it when I get to give a new gun law update that's full of entirely good news. So the federal bump stock ban is dead. Yes, you heard me right. The ATF/DOJ's bump stock ban was officially reversed in the Supreme Court.
Breaking news, the U.S. Supreme Court strikes down the Trump-era ban on bump stocks.
It is now federally legal for you to own a slide fire or whatever bump fire stock that you had tucked away for this exact moment.
That's a surprise tool that can help us later.
The Supreme Court struck the ban down, making it clear that if you wanted to ban bump stocks, you had to do it the right way, which is the way the Constitution outlines, which is actually passing a bill through Congress and having it signed into law by the president. Not only that, but it gets even better. Senate Democrats heard the ruling and tried to do just that. They introduced their own bill to ban bump stocks. Luckily, Senate...
It didn't just ban bump stocks. It functionally banned most rifles, if you actually read what was written into the law. It would have made something like 200,000 people into felons overnight.
Republicans stood up and killed the bill immediately, making it dead on arrival.
200 million, excuse me.
Luckily, Senate Republicans stood up and
Video's still too soft? Okay.
killed the bill in. Man, I love it when I get to give a new gun law update that's full of entirely good news. So the federal bump stock ban is dead. Yes, you heard me right. The ATF/DOJ's bump stock ban was officially reversed in the Supreme Court.
Breaking news, the U.S. Supreme Court strikes down the Trump-era ban on bump stocks.
It is now federally legal for you to own a slide fire or whatever bump fire stock that you had tucked away for this exact moment.
That's a surprise tool that can help us later.
The Supreme Court struck the ban down, making it clear that if
Still
you
funny the
wanted to
second
ban
time.
bump stocks, you had to do it the right way, which is the way the Constitution outlines, which is actually passing a bill through Congress and having it signed into law by the president. Not only that, but it gets even better. Senate Democrats heard the ruling and tried to do just that. They introduced their own bill to ban bump stocks. Luckily, Senate Republicans stood up and killed the bill immediately, making it dead on arrival. So yes, the bump stock ban is dead. That's
Why is it
exciting
always
for
the
multiple
crab thing?
reasons. For one, obviously Senate Democrats failed again to pass garbage gun control, which is always a win. But secondly, it proves the power of this ruling. It put the federal government on notice that if they want to pass a ban or a regulation, they have to do it the proper way. Not like the crap that they've been doing recently through the ATF, DOJ, EPA, whoever three-letter government agency, who can just spontaneously decide to make a rule that affects the lives of millions of Americans. When an unelected bureaucrat at the ATF can just decide on a whim without the approval of Congress to just make a rule that turns millions of Americans into felons overnight, that's a fucking problem. But speaking of which, that actually leads me over to another win we just got these last few days over arm braces. But before I go down that whole other second rabbit hole, let me talk really quickly about the sources I use for videos like this. As somebody who spent an entire political campaign being slandered by left-leaning sources, skewing or just flat out making shit up about me, knowing the bias of your source is crucial. That's why I recommend using tools like ground news that rate the political bias and the factual basis of news sources before you have to go through the self-lobotomizing process of reading obvious propaganda. When I'm doing research, I don't want opinions, I want facts. Ground news helps with that. We visually see on the bias distribution chart that the story is being reported mostly by the
Was what a real ad? What he's doing? What'd I miss? I looked away for like half a second. What ad?
sources I use for videos like this. As somebody who spent an entire political campaign
Yeah, this thing was an actual hit piece. One of many that were put out against Brandon during his congressional bid.
campaign being slandered by left-leaning sources, skewing or just flat out making shit up about me, knowing the bias of your source is crucial. That's why I recommend using tools like ground news that rate the political bias and the factual basis of news sources before you have to go through the self-lobotomizing process of reading obvious propaganda. When I'm doing
I do think that he should go after them for libel or slander. I forget which one's which, but he should go after them for it because they said some really bad stuff about him.
research, I don't want opinions, I want facts. Ground news helps with that. We visually see on the bias distribution chart that the story is being reported mostly by the left and center, with only 17% coming from the right. On the left, Huffington Post says the ruling is a blow to gun reformers, while on the right, the Ohio Star says it's a major win. But if I want to read an article without any spin, I can just take a look at the center-rated high factuality sources like the Nevada Independent, which simply outlines what this means for the state. It also has a blind spot feed, which shows important stories that the left or right-wing media may not be covering, but might still be important. Like this article here about how American soldiers are 9 times more likely to die by their own hand than they are by combat. So if you're into doing research on this stuff as much as I am, I would recommend checking them out. And you can get 40% off their Vantage plan using the links down in the description and in the pinned comment. So now back to the arm brace thing. So I know there's been a lot of conflicting information back and forth from the courts to the ATF, but now we finally have something locked in. A federal court has just blocked the ATF's final rule on arm braces. Yeah, that's right. If you ever pretended to give a fuck about that rule, which, spoiler alert, not a lot of people did, you can now pull these back out of the attic and stop pretending like you got rid of them. Man, just been a good week for the courts all around. Also, side note, it's been hilarious for me to watch the mass non-compliance, not just from, regular citizens, but also from manufacturers, dealers, distributors, people like that as well. Just a lot of folks going on business as usual, not giving a half of a fuck about the ban. Warms my heart. But yeah, the court's on a roll with this shit. Within like a couple of days of each other, we get bump stocks back, we get arm braces back. Let's start working on the Hughes Amendment, the NFA, you know. I got a list. A lot of people are wondering like why bump stocks are a big deal. People have even pointed out comments I've made in the past where I say that I don't really like bump stocks. And that's true. If I'm being perfectly honest, I think bump stocks are kind of gay. They look horrible and they're great at wasting a lot of ammo really quick, but when it comes to accuracy, you're just fucking slamming rounds all over the place. But the point being, it doesn't matter what I think. Regardless of whether or not I think it's cool, it doesn't change the fact that if you read the letter of the law, a bump stock clearly does not fit the legal definition of a machine gun. A machine gun, as per US legal definition, based on a law passed by Congress and signed by the president, is essentially an automatic weapon that fires multiple rounds per single pull of the trigger. A bump stock is just a piece of plastic that allows the shooter to pull the trigger individually faster, meaning that no matter how fast it fires when a bump stock is installed on a gun, you're still only getting one round fired per single pull of the trigger, meaning legally, it's not a machine gun. But you would already know the mechanics of a machine gun
And again, a reminder as proof, I can do it without a piece of plastic. A piece of plastic makes it easier. You can learn how to do it without the piece of plastic.
Legally, it's not a machine gun. But you would already know the mechanics of a machine gun and how it operates if you just took your interest in gunsmithing and weapons technology to the next level and signed up for sdi.edu using the links in the description and in the pinned comment. I kid. No, but seriously, the links are down there. Is it a bit of a loophole? Sure. But based on the law that was written that was preventing regular civilians from owning automatic weapons without, NFA compliance or enhanced licensing, a bump stock is legally nothing more than a piece of plastic. If you want to change that, you gotta write a new law. Then it has to pass the House, then the Senate, then be signed into law by the president, and then it becomes the law. But good luck, because that just happened and it was dead on arrival. And I know it seems like I'm harping on that whole, has to be passed by Congress, signed by the president. I've harped on that multiple times for this video, but it's for a reason. That is the way that the Constitution outlines that laws are written. Whether you agree with these new laws or not, it doesn't matter. The minute you throw that out the window, the government is nothing more than just a criminal gang that happens to have territorial control over the United States territory, which, albeit some days, that is alarmingly close to what it feels like. Seems to be something a lot of people in our current government have forgotten, conveniently. Now, factually, everything in this video that we've talked about so far, you could have found on, news sources or whatever if you've just been paying attention. But there is something that not a lot of people are talking about that I really haven't seen anybody cover so far, to be honest. Something I think will come back around
I think
in
I know
the
what this
future that
is.
I think is a delicious little piece of just unexpected bonus treat. Little cherry on top. And that, of course, was the opinion of Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor over the bump stock case. Her opinion, of course, is that they should remain illegal. Now, Justice Sotomayor is a very left-leaning Supreme Court justice, so this opinion was to be expected and is full of all sorts of, anti-gunner rhetoric. But she did include one very interesting nugget. While describing the Las Vegas shooting, of which a bump stock was used, allegedly. No, I mean, it was. But there are a lot of conspiracy theories on that. A lot of stuff that I've looked pretty deeply into, and, maybe that's something we'll cover in the channel going forward. I don't want to get too conspiratorial on stuff like that, but if it's something you guys would be interested in seeing a breakdown on, who knows, we might cover it. Just in case I feel like getting my channel deleted, I guess. But anyhow, describing the bump stock that was used in the Vegas shooting, she described it, quote, "He did so by affixing bump stocks to commonly available semi-automatic rifles," describing the AR-15s. If you have no idea why that's a fucking huge deal, allow me to explain. So probably the most important case that's ever been brought to the Supreme Court as far as the Second Amendment goes, the landmark case, was DC v. Heller. It's actually done in the 2000s. It further clarified the intent of the Second Amendment, including verifying that it protected the individual right to keep and to bear arms. One of the things that came out of that ruling, though, was the phrase common use. Meaning that so long as a firearm was in circulation in the American market or in, the hands of American citizens in quote-unquote common use, it was protected then as an arm under the Second Amendment. I'm painting with broad strokes here, but just go with me. It's one of the arguments that's actually been used about arm braces is because there have been millions of them sold that it would technically fall under common use, therefore protected under the Second Amendment. In trying to rationalize why assault weapons bans might be constitutional or legal, liberals have often cited that These so-called assault weapons, AR-15s, things like that, are not actually common use weapons. They're instead niche weapons, only designed as weapons of war, or whatever the fuck that means. Because due to the prior ruling with DC v. Heller, if it fell under common use, then it would be automatically protected by the Second Amendment and therefore legal and not under the umbrella of control by the federal government. So in trying to make AR-15s sound scary, Justice Sotomayor just handed us a fucking Easter gift basket. In trying to make the AR-15 sound scary as a commonly available semi-automatic rifle, basically just laid it out there as a synonym of what would be common use. Will this hold up in court as definitive proof that it is common use? No, this is a dissenting opinion. This is literally the fucking loser's corner. This is what the people who didn't win think. But it is going to be hilarious whenever an assault weapons ban comes across the bench, and Justice Sotomayor has to argue that AR-15s or similar assault weapons, whatever the fuck, don't fall under the category of common use, even though she literally just fucking argued that they are. So not only did they lose in the court, but they may have accidentally painted themselves in an intellectual corner later on down the road. And I just think that's neat. So yeah, it's nice to be able to come to you guys with a video every once in a while that isn't like, the sky is falling, the ATF's cracking down on our nutsack. We had some wins in the courts, and we should celebrate accordingly. But that doesn't mean we should get complacent. There's always going to be another fight, and I will always be here to tell you who we need to bully. So yeah, I know it's not as lighthearted as my normal content, but I think it is important to keep you guys in the loop, especially when it comes to matters of gun laws and Second Amendment stuff. More content coming next week. We got a range video coming out, and we got a gun meme review after that, hopefully. Be sure to check to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. YouTube's been doing that thing again. I fucking hate it when they do that. I hope it's not politically motivated, but fuck, they're making me wonder. Speaking of subscribed, you can also check me out over at the Unsubscribed podcast. We got some awesome guests lately. Jack Carr, Demetrius Johnson coming soon. Other than that, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I appreciate you for staying this far into the video, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks.
Okay, didn't have a whole lot to add on my part. Didn't know exactly how and where he was going to go with that, but yeah. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people that are still going to argue against it. The point I would make is, if they can circumvent the way to write the law for the Second Amendment, they can circumvent the way to make law for anything. So, and as has been proven many times in recent history, it does seem to come back and bite you. So that should be where things stand. And I just saw this. We're gonna save it for Sunday. I am interested though. Half Tracks, the mechanical centaur that won World War II. In the meantime, let's hopefully move to some a little bit less spicy content. You know, get that one out of the way. On the Kentucky ballistics. Pocket-sized deagle, a hand cannon in your pocket. It's going to be another one of his deranged derringers again. I know it. I could do 4K, but none of us are going to see it in 4K. Yeah. Just going to move on. Nothing else to add. Scott, what piece of junk have you got this time?
What are you up to, Scooter? Hey, what's up, man? I'm just hanging out, enjoying your new place, which is awesome, by the way. It's like the rainforest out here. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yeah, man, totally, and I'm digging this river. Thinking about going for a swim in it. I don't know if I would do that. There could be snakes in there. Yeah, okay, Scott. Everyone knows there's no snakes in Kentucky. Did you ever take science class? Scooter, there is a snake on your back. There is not a snake. Ah! 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 Oh my God, don't hit me. Ah! 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 Ah!
Reminder that Scott's cameraman is his dad. I have to... Oh, no, I see another thing we need to watch. I have to wonder what he's thinking with all this. And the next thing... Another thing for Sunday already. Firearms expert reacts to Bloodborne's guns.
What's up, everybody? My name is Scott, and you're watching Kentucky Ballistics, and I'm sure most of you have seen one of these before. This is a Magnum Research Desert Eagle chambered in 50 AE, and I love me some Desert Eagle, but the only problem with a bird this big is it's kind of hard to pack around. But today I may have a solution to that. This is a Bond Arms Cyclops, and this is also chambered.
It's always Bond Arms. It is always Bond Arms. Just saying, if you watch Kentucky Customs, his dad is on more, and he's just an older, well, that would explain a few things.
In 50 AE. So this little guy is firing the exact same bullet as this big guy right here. I am very excited today to compare the two and see how this thing performs. So let's get to it. So my first question about the Cyclops is how much recoil does it have compared to an actual Desert Eagle? So first I'm going to take a shot with both of these and see what we can catch on the slow-mo camera. We will be shooting some Underwood ammo, 300 grain, 50 AE jacketed hollow points.
Was he trying to hit the metal target?
Oh, that never gets old. Come on, I'm more of a man than that. I do it with my left. Why can't I do it with my right? There we go. Caught myself slipping. So now for the Cyclops. To load this little guy, there's a little lever right there. And this opens. You put your giant bullet inside.
So the rest of that's just recoil damping
that
mass
just
then.
Closes. Okay. Here we go. Wow.
I hate watching these things fire. They make my hand hurt.
She be kicking. That had a lot more recoil than I expected because I've shot one of these in 45-70, but I think the big difference here is the powders. A 45-70 is a rifle with rifle powder. This is a pistol round with pistol powder that burns much faster, so you're still getting a lot of performance out of this little pistol. Nice. So next I want to know how fast is the bullet coming out of the Cyclops compared
He's
to
gonna
a
shoot
Desert
it
Eagle?
again.
And how about penetration? So for this test, I have a 10% clear ballistic gel block made by Clear Ballistics, and I have a magical device called a chronograph. This will measure the speed of our bullets, and I can also make calls to Mars with it. I'm going to get this set up, and we're going to see if there is any difference between these two guns. But first, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Conflict of Nations. Conflict of Nations is a military-based strategy game based in the late 20th century / 21st century, fielding present-day and highly modern battlefield technology. Conflict of Nations is a free online PvP strategy game. Pick your real country and lead them to victory in World War III. Fight up to 128 players in real-time games that can take weeks to complete, and pick many different units to build your army. Jets, tanks, nuclear submarines, take your pick. In Conflict of Nations, you can declare war on your neighbors, or you can choose to form alliances with other players. Choose your
Mick and Jackrin, thank you for the follow. Nope, but you can join my server.
strategy and engage in epic battles and take over the world. Be sure and check out Conflict of Nations. Use my link in the description down below and you will receive an exclusive gift. I'm talking 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free. This offer is only available for the next 30 days, so be sure and check it out. Again, a big thank you to Conflict of Nations for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, we've got our ballistic gel and chronograph set up, and I'm loaded up with some Underwood ammo, 50 AE, 350 grain, jacketed hollow points.
I'm amazed he didn't shoot the chronograph. (1,563 feet per second). And we 100% made it completely through that block. Looks like we had a little bit of expansion, but then it just kept on a trucking. So now I have the exact same round loaded up into our Cyclops. Let's see what happens. That thing kicked so hard. Go into the... Yep, went in through the table, I think. Yep, there's the hole.
Looks like we have 703 feet per second. That's a pretty big difference, but there doesn't look like there's much difference in this gel. We still had expansion at the beginning of the block, just like the Desert Eagle, and then still managed to blow through the block. Why are you acting so surprised? Why didn't he shoot the chronograph?
He's gonna shoot it now.
He actually gave us chronograph readings. Why would I do that? It would be so pointless. Just a big waste. So now it's time to shoot some things that are not ballistic gel. This right here is a Stretch Armstrong,
Scott.
and they are surprisingly bulletproof, and I have not shot them in quite a while. So we're gonna hit this with the Cyclops with some more 350 grain jacketed hollow points.
These do some disturbing
Okay.
things when they get hit.
Oh! I'm not even sure if I hit him. No, I hit him. We hit right there, and then we blew out the back. Oh, it's so sticky. Oh, there's some pieces of lead in there. We did not catch our bullet in our ballistic gel, so we're going to go back to some old school testing. I have 1 gallon water jugs. I actually have 10 of these, and now we're going to see if we can catch a 50 AE bullet out of our Cyclops. Okay, I'm going to go with 5 water jugs and a sore finger.
Hmm.
Woo! That was refreshing. So, looks like we went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we stopped in 5.
Nope, you can hear it rattle.
Yeah, it's in there. Oh, wow. That is some pretty impressive expansion out of a pocket pistol. So up next, I have something that we've actually never shot on the channel. These are grapefruits. I wanted to shoot some smaller targets, but not too small, so I think these should be perfect. Plus,
Has he really never shot grapefruits before? That seems like something he would use as a pretty common target.
I'm not a really big fan of grapefruit. Oh, I mean, seriously, is that supposed to be good? Here we go.
No.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, now you smell like it.
expect that to be that explosive. Wow. I'm gonna have to shoot grapefruits more often. Oh, just not gonna eat grapefruit. My mouth is tingling. It's like eating battery acid. So up next, I have a very unpleasant organism, an
There we go.
eggplant. But these things aren't even worth wasting a bullet on.
No, he's just gonna. What? No idea what he's saying.
So up next, we are going to take a shot at this bulletproof truck. Well, bulletproof is kind of stretching it. It is.
That's. It's not the worst description for it. Scott is missing quite a few screws. Scott is missing quite a few screws. But it's fun to watch what happens.
Bullet resistant. It's definitely not bulletproof to punt guns and suppressed elephant guns, but we're going to see if it is Cyclops 50AE proof. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering, when you're done shooting this, to get your cartridge out, there's a little section here that's missing. You can get your nail in there.
That's not fun.
Okay, here we go. So, man, she be kicking, and I absolutely love it. I'm really starting to think I got gypped. That right there, that went all the way through. That went all the way through the truck.
I have concerns for this armored car.
Oh, yeah. Looks like we went through there, and then I feel like it ricocheted off the top or something, because I've got a hole right there in that door. That can't be right, though. There is no way. No, there's no way.
It might be a serious
It
cartridge,
definitely
but it's an
is.
armored car.
From that, I'm starting to question our chronograph reading. I feel like I had a false reading, because 700 feet per second is not doing all that damage. So at this point, I am actually very impressed with this Cyclops 50AE. But there is just one more test that I need to conduct, and that is, how would it do in a zombie apocalypse?
He could have just gotten a bad round. That happens.
So this is a Ballistic Dummy Labs synthetic zombie bust
Yeah, if he still had the chronograph, he could check it.
filled with green liquid, and we're going to see what happens when I hit it point blank with a 50AE pocket pistol. And you know, this is a pretty potent little round, and we could create some shrapnel, so I'm going to take some extra precautions, you know, just in case.
For those of you who don't have context, his 50 caliber exploded on him and tore his neck apart. He got super lucky. What?
Well, for one, he be smoking. All right, and oh, yes, so I would say that that is quite effective. Oh!
Why is he using... Why a wrench?
Well, if you do not have a 50AE pocket pistol, and it is indeed the zombie apocalypse, I believe a comically sized monkey wrench should do the trick. Again, don't forget to check out Conflict of Nations, a free online PvP strategy game happening in a modern global warfare. Choose your own strategy, engage in epic battles, and take over the world. But before you do,
He does not normally do double sponsor things like this, even if it's the same thing. Huh. Also, thank you, Golden Spartan. Very much appreciated.
use my link in the description down below. That will get you an exclusive gift, 13,000 gold, and 1 month of premium subscription for free. But this is only available for the next 30 days, so be sure and check it out. Again, a big thank you to Conflict of Nations for sponsoring today's video. Well, that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought about the 50 AE pocket pistol in the comment section down below. And if you did enjoy today's video, be sure and give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Also, be sure to check me out on all other social media platforms. Links to those can be found in the description down below, along with a link to KentuckyBallistics.com, just in case you want to pick up a shirt.
Well, I still appreciate the support.
Who made this table?
Table salesman's playing pranks on him now. And as always, my name is Scott. Thank you so much for watching Kentucky Ballistics, and I'll see you next time. I feel like the table manufacturers have been watching my videos. Because that was one tough table. What did I just say? What did I just say? I've been pestered to watch to the end, so we'll watch to the end. I say pestered, requested, multiple times. Oh, Kitty, thank you for the lemon, very appreciated. And there is Bloodborne, which is also being added to what we're doing on Sunday. I think I saw that one. Huh. Well, in the meantime, how powerful are concrete bullets, 10 gauge slugs, and buckshot from Kentucky Ballistics? That's right, it looks like, well, looks like he's decided that he's going to be shooting concrete now. Because, sure, why not? What
Yes,
is
sir.
he doing
I
now?
have located his new property. No sign of him yet. And everything seems to be. Oh. I think I'm gonna be sick, sir.
Is his goatee
He's got
made
a
of
whole
marker?
Table graveyard. Oh.
Not goatee, you know what I mean.
He just destroyed another one. We gotta stop him. Or we're gonna need backup. He's out of control.
Is that just marker on his chin?
What's up, everybody? My name is Scott, and you're watching Kentucky Ballistics. And here on the channel, I have tested out a lot of unique ammunition. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes.
I think that's one of the dirt cheap shotguns Brandon Herrera got. Because he got a bunch of these dirt cheap single shot break actions for something. And then he said that he let people. Oh! What? Oh. He said that he'd let people use them, and I think that's one of them.
Times unintentionally. But today I have some very unique ammo on purpose. When it comes to shotguns, my favorite shotgun is the almighty 10 gauge shotgun. And today we have concrete 10 gauge slugs and 10 gauge concrete buckshot. I am very excited to see how it performs and see how it compares to lead ammunition. So let's go get set up and get started. It is a hot one today, but you know what they say, it's not the heat, it's the humidity that'll get you. Anyways, we are going to start out by shooting some steel with our concrete slugs and buckshot.
Yeah, I see that up too. The ones that Brandon has, I think are like 410s or something.
So this is our 10 gauge concrete slug. This thing weighs 180 grains. Normally a lead slug is weighing around like 765 grains. And then here is our 10 gauge concrete buckshot. These are also very light. We're looking at about 140 grains total. Okay, the shotgun I am using today is a New England Firearms single shot 10 gauge shotgun. And I'm going to start out with the lead buckshot. Gonna be lead on the left, concrete on the right. Here we go. Okay, now the concrete buckshot. I'm sure it's not gonna kick as hard as the lead. Wow, that was actually a lot more stout than I thought it would be. Well, I'm gonna say the concrete buckshot maybe a little too small for the 10 gauge. I think it just pretty much turned it to powder, but the lead buckshot, pretty good. Okay, now for the moment of truth, we are gonna try out the slug. I'm gonna go lead slug first.
Well, the video goes for a while, so he gets use out of it. There we go. That still looks like it's powdering up a lot. Well, I mean, it's concrete. That shatter's gonna be nasty.
I love 10 gauge so much. Now, concrete slug. I hope I'm not let down. Here we go.
Oh, wait, was that the lead? Sorry. What do I know? Huh. That still broke up then.
I think something hit it. Okay,
Something hit, but it still broke up.
10 gauge concrete buckshot, not so effective, but the concrete 10 gauge slug actually held together and put a pretty good mark on that steel target. I mean, obviously lead is looking superior, but I'm very curious to see what kind of damage we are doing with a concrete 10 gauge slug.
There is a reason that we shoot lead bullets and not rock bullets.
But before we continue, I want to give a big thank you to all of you who came out to my meet and greet at the 511 Tactical Store in Nashville, Tennessee. It was a huge turnout. I had a ton of fun, and it was wonderful meeting every single one of you. And I want to give a big thank you to 511 for hosting me. If you would like to see more meet and greets, let me know in the comment section down below, and be sure and show 511 some love for hosting this event. Check them out with the link in the description down below and use my code 511KYB to get 20% off all non-sale items, and this is good until June 30th. Again, a huge thank you to 511 for sponsoring this video, and a big thank you to all of you who showed up and support the channel. Now, let's get back to it. Not bad, but I am gonna have to work on the height I can get from throwing my table because I didn't quite make it. All right. I say we shoot some ballistic gel. This is a 16-inch, 10% clear ballistic gel block made by Clear Ballistics.
And this will be interesting.
On the table here and see what kind of penetration we get out of our concrete slugs. I know you probably want to see some chronograph readings though, but unfortunately I kind of had a little bit of a whoopsie today. Pull!
I wish he would take the readings before he destroyed them.
With our 10 gauge concrete slug. Here we go.
That just bounce off. That just bounced off.
Let's have a look at our block here. We actually did not penetrate very deep. It hit the block and then it broke up quite a bit. If you look right here, that block is very, very chewed up. It's so gritty. Look at that. Okay. Concrete.
Yeah, that probably was the shotgun. Never mind. Yeah, that was a shotgun. It'd be a nasty wound, but
The concrete.
no, it'd still be a nasty wound.
At close range was actually pretty effective, and honestly it penetrated about as deep as the slug. So now I'm kind of curious, what will this 10 gauge concrete buckshot do at a point blank range to our mannequin? Oh my gosh, that was awesome. And you know what else is awesome? Subscribing to Kentucky Ballistics. Hit that subscribe button. All right, that's enough of that
Elmer's
scientific
glue.
stuff. Let's just have some fun and blast some interesting targets. This is 1 gallon of Elmer's glue, and we're gonna hit it with a concrete 10 gauge slug.
Maybe the glue will help it stay together.
That's because these don't seem to be very accurate. All right, here we
He's
go.
gonna get hit. No, he's not. That is not a lot of energy.
Oh. So, hit a little to the left. Did not go all the way through it, but still did a little bit of damage. What is this? Oh, that's the wadding. Ew. Gross! So now we're gonna do a destruction comparison. I have 2 6-pound containers of Dijon mustard. I'm gonna hit one with the concrete slug and one with a lead slug. Okay, concrete slug first, on the left.
That is a... These are really not proving to be very effective at all.
All right, this is about to be a lot bigger. 1 3/4 ounce, 10 gauge slug, coming at you. Oh!
Yep, if you had any
Oh,
questions,
yeah.
there's the answer.
I'm gonna say lead is a little more destructive. So
It's just like no energy transfer.
10 gauge concrete slug seems to be pulling to the left, and again did not make it all the way through that giant thing of mustard. But the 10 gauge lead slug did a fantastic job at busting that up, and there is mustard all over the place. I mean, we have quite the spread. Dijon mustard, huh?
There's Elmer's glue in that.
No, I don't like it. So next, we're going to shoot something a
Yep.
little bit thicker. I have 1 gallon containers of mayonnaise.
Multiple times.
And they are real extra heavy. Like me. That's why I'm sweating so much. Gonna go with the concrete slug on the left again. This time I'm gonna aim a little to the right. There we go.
I did not expect to be unimpressed by concrete slugs.
That was much better. Now for the lead slug. Here we go. Oh!
I did not expect to be unimpressed by the concrete slugs.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's probably mayonnaise on my back. Well, I thought I protected my gun, but I didn't. I got mayonnaise on my gun. Lead slug definitely wins again, but this time I had a better hit with the concrete slug, and I feel like we did a little more damage that time. Well, that's going to be it for the main course. I say we move on to dessert. Now I have 2 6-pound cans of chocolate pudding. My guess is the concrete slug is not going to do much to this one, but we are going to try it out anyways. But I think the lead slug is probably going to pop it.
Mm-hmm.
Concrete slug first.
I mean, it'd still be nasty because of the damage of the wound it would do, but bullets are just transferring so much more energy.
Yeah, didn't do a whole lot.
Normal bullets.
Now, lead slug on the right. You can't have your pudding unless you eat your meat. Oh! That is exactly why I love 10 gauge. She be kicking. Let's have a look at what's left of this can. I am actually quite surprised because we almost made it into the can. I didn't think that it would even puncture it. I thought it would just kind of break up on it and bust it up, but no, actually did a little bit of damage.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on.
Really?
This guy's not having a great day. I mean, he's missing part of his face, and now he just got sprayed with pudding. So I know we probably are not going to do too much damage with our concrete ammunition, but I still want to take a few shots at our armored car because I'm curious. Okay,
If the concrete
first up,
goes through, he
here's
got
the
sold a bill of
buckshot.
goods.
I'm going to go for the star.
Good, it didn't penetrate.
Now for the concrete slug. Gonna aim for the center of the star.
Yeah, that just broke up.
So we had a decent spread with our concrete buckshot. We actually had quite a few hits. One here, 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 here. I think that would probably stick.
What? Oh, I think this is one of the YouTube's injected ads.
Sting if you got hit with that at this distance.
Didn't work though. Brave, yes. Brave browser wins again. Like I said, I'm not sponsored by Brave, but I really could be. Well, they tried. They lost. All right, back to the video.
And then as for our slug, I managed to hit right here in the center of this O, and that was totally on purpose. So now I want to see what kind of damage we can do with some 10 gauge copper plated buckshot. I'm gonna go for that little winder. Oh, ho, ho. Let's give it another. I'm gonna go for the star. All right, one more. Let's go for the little peephole. So for a little while now, I've been questioning, what is this truck actually rated for? I mean, a 416 Rigby zipped right through it. Punt gun did some damage to it, but it took a slug to really do some damage. And then the other day, a snub nose 50 AE made it through this thing and did this big hole right here. But it looks like with a 10 gauge shotgun, you would probably be okay. Stopped all our buckshot. That's actually really cool. That's a good pattern. It kept it all within that star. Then we hit our glass and it held up to it. And then I aimed for a little peephole here. We actually put a pretty big dent in this frame that goes around it, and then all of this through here. So I know now that this truck is at least rated for shotguns. All right, that's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like and hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, let me know what you thought about the 10 gauge concrete slugs in the comment section down below. Also, be sure and check me out on all other social media platforms. Links to those can be found in the description down below, along with a link to KentuckyBallistics.com, just in case you want to pick up a shirt. But I promise you, yours will not be this squiddy.
A lot of edgy 10-year-olds tonight.
Okay, I'm starting to get concerned. I think the table companies are watching, because these tables here lately have been a lot tougher. And as always, my name is Scott. Thank you so much for watching Kentucky Ballistics. I'll see you next time.
Okay, not a lot to add to that. I figured the concrete bullets would be more effective in some way, shape, or form, and they just weren't. I mean, that was legitimately disappointing. I had hoped, at the very least, that that we'd see some real devastation there, but yeah. I mean, like I said, a wound from it would be bad. It'd be real nasty to have all those rocks and stuff in you, but they're not like really delivering a lot of energy or penetration power. They're just kind of, I say kinda. As far as what a shotgun of that gauge is gonna do, they're not like really destroying and tearing through a lot, which is surprising. I expected them, like I said, I know that we're using lead for a reason, but I expected it to be a little bit better. Anyways, like I said, not a lot to add. So tonight we're going to move on to Fat Electrician, then actual game stuff. So, this is the Fat Electrician's video, the real tank genius of World War II, Percy Hobo Hobart. This is about Hobart's funnies. I know a decent amount about these tanks already. I'm curious if he's going to say anything that I don't know when it comes to some of this stuff. Could be interesting. One moment, I gotta check something real quick before I move on. Let's see. No, that's not what I want. Gotta get this set before we go to the next one. But yeah, I know a decent amount about Hobart's funnies already, and the history behind the various tanks of the invasion. So I'm curious what I may or may not learn here. But you know, it's Fat Electrician. He always finds some new stuff I haven't heard before. So figure this is a good one. So this is a little bit of an older one. It's been out for a little bit, but I've missed it till now.
This video, I just wanted to know how the tanks made it onto the beaches at D-Day, and what I found instead is one of the greatest
Oh, YouTube's trying again. YouTube's trying again. It says it's a minute. They tried a second one. Look at that. YouTube's
anti-hero stories of all time, and it rewrote my understanding of history. Today we're talking about the man that quite literally wrote the book on armored warfare, a World War I veteran that was forced into early retirement because his fellow officers didn't like him very much. But after German tanks rampaged through France and North Africa utilizing their new blitzkrieg tactic, Winston Churchill himself would call upon this man to leave retirement and go toe-to-toe with the infamous German tank commanders.
I'm not sponsored, but that on its own is like an amazing advertisement for the Brave browser.
Erwin Rommel and Heinz Guderian. Ladies and gentlemen, the hero of D-Day that you've probably never heard of, Major General Sir Percy Cleghorn Stanley Hobart, aka Hobo. But first, a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Delete Me. Delete Me is an online subscription service. It's a very straightforward, simple business. You give them money, they get rid of your personal information off the internet. Okay, look, here's the deal. Somehow, some way, your personal information is on the internet. Your name, your spouse's name, your parents' name, your address, your last 5 addresses, your phone numbers, and all of your emails are all sitting in some data broker's bank, and they're selling that information for money. But the good news is that these data brokers are legally required to delete your information if you submit an opt-out request. And that's where Delete Me comes in. They will go to all the big data brokers and automatically submit opt-out requests on your behalf, and you don't have to do anything. And I know what you're thinking, because I thought the same thing. I don't want to give all my personal information to Delete Me either, because that just seems counterproductive. Okay, here's the thing with that. You don't have to give them all your private information. You can literally give them your name and your email address. You can give them more information if you want, but really all they need is your name and email, and then you come back a few days later and they just start asking you a bunch of yes or no questions. By using just your name and email, they'll search through all the data banks and figure out who you are, and they'll ask you a bunch of weird questions like, is this your dad? Is this your mom? Is that a relative? Is this your address? Did you used to live here? Did you grow up at this address? Is this your phone number? Is this your email? They know all of this information just by you giving them your name and email, using all the information that these data brokers have. And then you just let them know, yes, that's me, and then they will delete all that information for you. A couple days after that, they're going to send you a report. Here was mine. Over 70 data brokers had my information, and there were 489 listings where that information was for sale, and Delete Me submitted opt-out requests for all of them. Now, those data brokers are probably going to be able to get my information again, but Delete Me is constantly going to be searching for my info and automatically submitting the requests as soon as those listings pop up. Go check out Delete Me. I'll have a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video. Percy Hobart was born in India in 1885 and joined the British military in 1902. He would then go on to fight in World War I. While there, in typical anti-hero fashion, he made a name for himself as being extremely effective, but unorthodox and disobedient at the same time. Because of this, many of the other British officers don't really
Isn't that all the best war heroes?
care for him. Despite that, he makes it through World War I, ends up earning himself a military cross, and then in 1919 he goes off to college. Graduates from college 4 years later in 1923, he then volunteers to be an officer in the Royal Tank Corps. Now, he volunteered because most people did not want this position. And that's because at this point in time, a lot of the high-ranking British officers didn't see the true potential that tanks and armored vehicles had. They simply viewed them as a single tool for trench warfare to get from one trench to the other. They didn't realize that one day it was going to replace cavalry. Percy Hobart, on the other hand, was a visionary and saw its true potential, and that's why he volunteered. Not only that, he was also very vocal about this opinion, and he would actually persuade a lot of the younger soldiers to believe the same thing, which honestly isn't a very hard sell. The new guy joins the army and you're like, hey, quick question, did you want to ride a horse into battle, or did you want to drive a fucking tank? Okay, everybody's picking a tank. And over time, his advocacy
I love the
for
little
change
kid
ends up
cheer
making
sound
a lot of
effect.
the old
It's just so
cavalry
funny
officers end
when
up hating
paired
him
with this
because
stuff.
he's kind of trying to make them obsolete. And you have to remember, at this point in time, the British officer corps is very, very cliquey. Like, they're socialites and gentlemen, and they have to, you know, conduct themselves in a certain manner and all that BS. So when Hobart comes in and starts ruffling feathers, it upsets the entire officer corps, and they all pretty much hate him at this point. Despite that, he knows he's right, and he just keeps working on pioneering new tactics and new applications for tanks. Now, one of the few legitimate concerns about having tanks on the battlefield at this point in time was that they were basically autonomous. And what I mean by that is, once the tank crew got their orders, hopped in the tank, and took off, that was it, because tanks didn't have radios
That scene is amazing, by the way. Highly recommend you go watch it.
and stuff yet at
All quiet in the Western Front, tanks.
this point in time. So once they left, you couldn't call them back, you couldn't change up the mission, they couldn't communicate with anybody outside of that tank. So Hobart comes out and
Actually, I'm going to pause again about that. There's a story about that where tanks were deployed, but the actual assault was called off. And the tanks didn't know, so they just advanced on their own, decimated a position, looked around, was like, oh, our infantry is still back at our lines. Turned back around, advanced through the position, and went again, and then went home.
he's like, well, hey, rather than not using tanks because they can't communicate, how about we just, I don't know, put some radios inside of them? So he fights tooth and nail for like a year to make that happen, gets radios put in all of his tanks, and then trains his guys how to run battle drills, being able to actually communicate with each other and the chain of command. And guess what? It works exactly how you would expect it to. I mean, this is the upside down ketchup bottle of the tank world. Like, somebody finally came out with this idea and everybody's like, how? How did I not come up with that billion-dollar idea? At this point, all the junior officers and lower enlisted are like, holy shit, this is awesome. And all the older, more experienced officers that already hated Hobart lose their shit because he's now actively making them look stupid.
What are those? You are wearing his merchandise!
So once that gets worked out, he starts developing legitimate battle strategies and drills and training his men on how to conduct tank warfare, how to integrate tanks with infantry, really laying the groundwork for what would become modern tank warfare. This goes on for a couple of years, and then in 1927, he ends up being a co-respondent in a divorce case. Now, I'll be honest, I had to Google what that meant, but apparently co-respondent is the fancy British officer polite way of saying Percy Hobart was banging somebody else's wife. Her name was Dorothea Field, and of course, she was another British officer's wife.
Naughty, naughty.
After that divorce is finalized, Dorothea and Percy get married pretty much immediately, and the rest of the officer corps now absolutely hates him, and they actively try to get him kicked out of the military because this is not gentlemanly behavior. They're not able to get it done. Hobart stays in the military and continues to develop and refine armored warfare, and one of the things he starts to do is look back into history and see if there's any lessons that he can apply to tank warfare. And one of the things that he hones in on is the Mongols. The Mongols were so successful because they utilized cavalry to strike deep into enemy territory at strategic points, weakening their entire empire. And Hobart says, what if I could do the same thing, but with tanks? And to anybody that knows a lot about history, that sounds an awful lot like the German Blitzkrieg tactic, and that's because it is. Yeah, the Germans didn't come up with the Blitzkrieg, Percy Hobart did. Heinz Gedermann, the German tank commander that is the architect of the Blitzkrieg, is well known to have had every single paper that Percy Hobart published translated into German, and he kept that with him everywhere he went. Yeah, the infamous German tank commanders Rommel and Guderian didn't revolutionize armored warfare, they just copied Hobart's homework. So if Percy Hobart is the actual genius behind the Blitzkrieg, why don't most people know that? Why does everybody give
And as Fat Electrician said, Nick said, Hobart modernized it. The tactic itself, still way older than even that. Just as a reminder. But Hobart is the one who modernized it, unlike them. But they got to write their own books, so you know.
Germany credit, and why didn't the British use it first? Or at the very least, know that it was a possibility when it was used against them in France when they got their asses beat in 6 weeks. That is because the British chain of command hated the man that came up with the Blitzkrieg, and for that reason made the entire strategy a failure. In 1934, Britain conducted a large training exercise where Percy Hobart was going to be allowed to try out his new methods. If you don't know, when you're conducting a large military training exercise, you have like Team A, Team B, and then you have the umpires, so to speak. You have the people making sure that both teams are doing the right things, saying, yeah, that works, no, that doesn't work, declaring who wins and who loses. The umpires conspired against Hobart because they were military officers and they didn't like him, and basically made his entire strategy fail. Fast forward 1937, Hobart is given command of the 1st Armored Division, Great Britain's first modern tank division. Because of this, a bunch of British officers promptly throw a bitch fit and try to get Hobart kicked out of the military. Again, it fails again, but the chain of command has to come up with a compromise, and that compromise is to take Hobart and send him down to Egypt, where he can take command of the 2nd Armored Division, which was basically, we're going to ship him halfway across the world and then pretend he doesn't exist. Out of sight, out of mind, right? So Hobart gets down to Egypt, and it is a complete shit show because tanks are effectively replacing cavalry at this point, so it's cavalry officers that are running tank divisions, and they have chosen to not read any of the literature or training material that he has spent the last decade developing, and they are operating tanks like they are dragoons. If you don't know, a dragoon is kind of like cavalry, except it's not. They ride in on horses and then they dismount and go into battle on foot. And that's what the 2nd Armored Division is being trained to do. They roll up.
Which is a tactic I always thought was dumb before they applied it to tanks.
In the tank, and then the gunner and the loader stay in the tank while the rest of the crew gets out and fights like infantry while being a static target instead of a moving target, which is the entire point of being a fucking tank. The chain of command is effectively trying to do everything they can to make tanks look bad and ineffective, because by extension it makes Hobart look bad and ineffective. The running joke when Hobart gets there is that the Egyptian force is the Egyptian farce and the mobile division is the immobile division. But when Hobart shows up, he turns the entire thing around. Between 1930 and 1940, he trains this entire division how to actually conduct tank warfare, and they get super effective at it. And the men absolutely love him, because Percy Hobart is not only a great teacher, but he actually wants every man under his command to understand what they are doing and why they are doing it, when at this point in time many other officers don't care about that. They just want you to shut up and follow orders. But Percy Hobart wants you to know what you should be doing and why you should be doing it. That way, if the chain of command ever fails, you can make intelligent decisions regarding what needs to be done. In short, Percy Hobart treats his men like they're grown-ass men, and they absolutely love him for it. And because of that, he gains overwhelming support from the junior officers and enlisted men, and he becomes immensely popular.
No, don't like that.
And because of this, they finally force him out of the military, because they sent him down to Africa, intentionally sabotaged him, and yet again, he's managed to turn the entire situation around and turns it into a positive thing. So they just end up getting him fired. In 1940, he is forced into early retirement. On his final departure from Egypt, the men of the 2nd Armored Division lined the entire road to wish him farewell as their sign of how much they actually respected this man. So Percy goes back home, but still wanting to be involved in the military, he joins the Home Guard, which is like the British equivalent of the National Guard, and he gets busted down from Lieutenant General to Corporal, which, if you don't know military ranks, is like going from CEO to front desk receptionist. Not that I'm trying to talk bad about receptionists, but I'm trying to give you an accurate depiction of what a drastic change in authority this is. 5 months after Hobart's...
Yeah, the British Home Guard had problems. A lot of problems. A whole lot of problems.
forced into retirement, the German military rolls into France with tanks, utilizing the blitzkrieg tactic that Percy Hobart designed, and completely stomps the British and the French army in a matter of 6 weeks. Erwin Rommel then goes and proceeds to rampage through North Africa, and the only people that even kind of slow him down are Hobart's men of the 2nd Armored Division that is now known as the 7th Armored Division, aka the Desert Rats. At this point, Winston Churchill starts asking questions and realizes what his officer corps has done, and he personally calls Percy Hobart back into service and awards him the rank of Major General, at which point all of the officers throw a fit yet again, saying that he's 57 years old, he's too old to serve in the military, and they try to get him med boarded out. Winston Churchill yet again intervenes and stops the med board and issues this statement, quote, "The high commands of the army are not a club. It is my duty to make sure exceptionally able men, even though not popular with their military contemporaries, are not prevented from giving their services to the crown." Translation, quit being a bunch of catty bitches, we need this guy. By the time all that political BS gets done, Rommel is back in Europe, and he has been tasked with fortifying the Atlantic Wall, the German defense from Norway to Spain in case the Allies should invade. Rommel reinforces it with 260,000 men manning over 15,000 concrete bunkers and artillery positions. The entire thing is coated with barbed wire. It has anti-vehicle emplacements to prevent tanks and other vehicles from getting up the beach. And they lay over 200 million mines. And the man put in charge of figuring out how to penetrate those defenses is none other than Percy Hobart. He is reading the picture, and he knows that these kids have been stealing his homework. He comes in with the complete dad energy of, I taught you everything you know, but I didn't teach you everything I know. He takes command of the 79th Tank Regiment and gets to work immediately. It is now Major General Hobart and Erwin Rommel going toe-to-toe in a battle of wits that will determine the fate of the world. And obviously, we're going to handle this issue with tanks, which brings us to problem number 1. How are we going to get tanks on the beach? How are we going to get a 70,000-pound hunk of metal with a gun from the boat through the water onto the beach? Obviously, we just got to make a tank float, and it can't be that hard because battleships float, right? I mean, those are big and heavy and made out of metal, so why can't we do the same thing with a tank? All you have to do is displace enough water, and bada bing, bada boom, you're floating. So all we got to do is increase the surface area of a tank. So they take a gigantic tube of wax canvas, wrap it around the tank, and then have inflatable tubes that when they inflate it, the canvas stands straight up, and basically it is a tank inside of a giant canvas tube. And then we'll just add a couple of little boat propellers on the back of the tank so it'll push itself through the water. Problem solved. Sounds stupid, works terrific. So now that we've got the Sherman duplex drive amphibious tank figured out, the next problem, what is the beach made out of? Are the tanks going to get hung up and stuck? Because we can't have that.
They weren't just Shermans. I believe Cromwell's and Stuart's were also used. Let me actually double check that. Let me double check that. Is that a Valentine? That is a Cromwell. That is a Valentine. That is a Stuart. Didn't know they had Valentines. Huh. Figured those would be too dense for their size. Didn't work that well. They worked well on 4 of the 5 beaches, at least.
Happening either. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a submarine. We're going to send them out. They're going to wait till night. Once night falls, the sailors are going to go ashore, gather up a bunch of the dirt from the beach, and figure out what it's made out of. It's made out of blue clay. Probably the worst possible thing because those tanks will for sure get stuck in clay. So obviously, problem number 2, how on earth are we going to get the tanks through all this blue clay? It would be really nice if we had a road. You know what? Fuck it. We're just going to bring our own road. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bobbin. That is a Churchill tank with a gigantic spool of canvas that has metal rods inside of it that literally goes ahead first and lays down a road for all the other tanks to drive on right up the beach. Again, it looks really silly, but it works super well. At this point, all the other people that hate Hobart are starting to make fun of him. They're starting to refer to these tanks as Hobart's funnies, but they have no idea how important these tanks are going to end up.
He figured out how to make a portable... Well, they're the same idiots that drove him out, so, you know.
Being. Hobart is over here actually trying to save the world by any means necessary. He realizes it doesn't matter how cool it looks, he just needs it to work, and he only needs it to work once. Meanwhile, all of his other contemporaries are worried about looking good while they do it. Okay, problem number 3, marching right up the beach. Now we have to worry about the mines and the barbed wire. We can't be blowing the tracks off our tanks with mines. We need to clear the barbed wire for the men, and we don't want the barbed wire getting hung up in the tracks of the tank. What are we gonna do? Things are about to go from looking weird and silly to looking terrifying and awesome, because the plan for this is to eat the barbed wire and blow up the mines in front of us using the Sherman Crab, aka the flail tank. Okay, so just so we're all on the same page, in theory, we have now figured out how to sail a fucking tank a mile through the ocean, build a road in front of us as we drive it up the beach, cut through barbed wire, and detonate mines. The only defensive structure left is the enormous concrete bunkers with Germans
Crocodiles.
inside shooting machine guns.
Here comes
and
the
mortars. What are we gonna
crocodiles.
do about them? Because normal tank guns aren't gonna take those out effectively. Which is a pretty simple solution. If your gun isn't big enough, just get a bigger gun. Ladies and gentlemen, the petard. It is essentially
Or
a
the
mortar
mortar
that is the
tank.
size of a propane tank, affectionately dubbed the flying dust bin.
You call that big?
Yeah, the thing's huge.
That explains a lot.
What is that supposed to mean?
You told me 8 inches.
And you told me you took installments.
I didn't know what that meant.
That's your problem. Interrupting my history time.
What?
And if the flying dustbin doesn't work, this one will. The most terrifying of all of the creations, the crocodile, aka the flamethrower tank, pulling a armored trailer with 500 gallons of jungle jelly, capable of shooting flames over 250 yards. So if everything goes according to plan so far, the enemy is either going to be dead or retreating. Here's the problem. Once the enemy starts retreating, they're also going to...
I was driving, this a couple years ago now, I was driving to work, and there was a Churchill being towed in front of me, and it was a crocodile. They have a distinctive brick in the front of them that the flame comes out of, and it had that. I'm sitting there going, I am not driving behind a crocodile tank right now.
start blowing up all the bridges behind them, making it very hard to maneuver vehicles, especially tanks, across ravines, rivers, ditches, and so on. So, what are we gonna do once they blow up the bridges? Fuck it, I guess we'll just bring a bridge from home, right? No, I'm not messing with you. Ladies and gentlemen, bridge tank.
Still in use today.
Oh man, it went from this is kind of silly and there's no way that's gonna work to, oh my god, that's terrifying, to, okay, now you guys are just showing off. And I know what you're thinking, that's great, but what if it's just a little tiny anti-tank ditch or a ravine, not something that really necessitates an entire bridge? Well, that's easy, ladies and gentlemen, the fascine, aka a bundle of sticks. So that's it, the plan is set. Hobart has accounted for absolutely everything, and this plan is for sure gonna work. But here's the thing, you've probably seen a bunch of movies or played a bunch of video games that incorporate the landing at Normandy on D-Day, and you've never seen any of this stuff. So, why is that? That's because most movies and video games, like Saving Private Ryan, for example, take place on Omaha Beach, which was one of the American beaches, and the Americans didn't have access to all of Hobart's tanks. Why is that? Well, some people believe that the American leadership saw it and said that it was stupid, not gonna work, and they didn't want anything to do with them. However, that's a myth and it's completely untrue. Omar Bradley saw Hobart's inventions and requested all of them. Unfortunately, not enough could be made in time, and the only thing the American forces would be given for D-Day was the Sherman DD duplex drive amphibious tanks. And the reason that Hollywood
Junior Martin 1973, thank you for the follow and welcome.
Focuses on Omaha Beach is because it's the most dramatic. It's the one beach of the 5 where absolutely everything went wrong. And believe it or not, one of the
Matthew De Amorum, thank you for the follow, welcome.
main things, the one beach of the 5 where absolutely everything went wrong. And believe it or not, one of the main things that went wrong was that the Sherman duplex drive tanks didn't make it. They got released too far off the beach and the seas were too rough, and a lot of them ended up sinking. Luckily, only 5 tankers drowned. The rest were able to escape and get picked back up by the boats, but it was a huge issue not having tanks on Omaha Beach, and it is part of the reason that Omaha was the deadliest beach on D-Day. If you pay attention and you know what you're looking for, it's even referenced in the Saving Private Ryan movie.
No armor has made it ashore. We got no DD tanks on the beach. Dog 1 is not open.
So just so we're all on the same page, the reason most people have never seen or heard about these things is because they weren't at Omaha Beach, and Hollywood focuses on Omaha Beach because it was the deadliest, most brutal battle. But the reason that it was the deadliest battle was quite literally in part due to the fact that Hobart's funnies weren't there to help the Allies fight. These tanks are quite literally a victim of their own success. To give you an example of how big of an impact they had on
A small number, at least one DD tank did make it onto the beach, but it was disabled down at the waterline. So it was there, but it was too far away from the bunkers to be able to do anything about the bunkers, to be able to provide any kind of support and really even provide much cover, since it was right there at the water line where its track got knocked out. But its gun still worked. And it actually kept firing at the bunkers, even though its little 75 millimeter gun at that range wasn't going to do much more than maybe make some of the machine gunners duck for cover. But it contributed to salvaging the situation at Omaha Beach, because, get this, one of the problems with Omaha was there were no tanks on the beach. There were no radio tanks because they weren't all radio tanks for coordination. Most of the radio men who were deploying got killed. The Navy didn't know where to shoot. They were too far away. They couldn't figure out where they were supposed to shoot. Eventually, one of the ship captains, trying to figure out what they're supposed to do, notices this lone Sherman sitting on the beach shooting at bunkers and says, they're at least down there on the beach and able to communicate with the troops. So they must know what needs to be shot at. Gunners, what that tank shoots at, you shoot at. And multiple ships, like a dozen ships, all started watching this one tank for where it was shooting. And when it would fire on a bunker, that bunker would then just get pounded as all these Navy ships dogpiled onto this single target. And it didn't take very long for the crew in the tank to figure out that where they're shooting, the Navy is shooting. So while they were originally trying to shoot at some of the lighter machine gun posts that were just an open hole in the bunker, they started shooting at the big fortified guns that they had no chance of doing anything to, because they knew and understood, if I shoot at it, the Navy is going to dogpile on it and deal with it for me. And they did this until they ran out of ammunition. And by the time they ran out of ammunition, the problem had mostly been solved at that point. Many of the warships have broken formation and advanced way closer to the beach than they were supposed to, including, I believe it was the USS Texas battleship, practically beached itself and flooded one side of the ship so that it could point its guns high enough, all in order to be able to get closer to see what they were shooting at and deal with the problem. Then, of course, more and more troops actually start making it ashore. The tanks start getting released on the spot so that they could just drive up. But for several hours, that little tank, that lone Sherman, was basically directing the entire naval bombardment in order to try to provide some help and relief to the troops on the beach. So even though most of them didn't make it, the fact that they were there, the fact that there was just one tank there, still contributed a huge amount to Omaha Beach not actually being a failure.
On the other beaches, the next deadliest beach after Omaha is Juneau, and it had less than half the casualties. But Hobart and the 79th Armored Division's contributions aren't done on D-Day. At this point, Hobart decides, rather than keeping all of his men together as one unit, like pretty much every other type of armored unit did, he decided that he was going to split them up and attach them and their specialty tanks to all the other units of the Allied forces, essentially turning his tank division into the special forces of tanks. Need to clear some mines? Here's the crab. You need to scare some Germans? Here's the crocodile. By the end of World War II, the Germans were so scared of the crocodile flamethrower tank that they would start to surrender at the mere sight of it. The 79th Armored Division and Hope...
Okay, he's kind of gotten past this, so I don't think he's going to mention it. I mentioned that he missed something I didn't want to say because I didn't know if he would bring it up. Once they were on the beaches, there was another problem. French hedgerows. These massive hedges that are so big and so dense that even normal tanks can't drive through them. They'd start to drive up and then they'd get stuck. All this vegetation would get tied up in the treads. The tank would just stall out, often with its nose in the air and weak underside armor for Panzerfausts and even grenades and anti-tank rifles to be able to knock them out. The initial plan for how to deal with this was tanks with Well, yeah, but Hobart didn't do it. The troops did it, but his engineers were part of the effort to create the solution to this. I think they still count personally because the funny crews were involved in the creation of the solution, which was not this next tank that I'm going to bring up, which was a standard tank. It wasn't considered a funny, which was a tank with a big dozer blade on the front of it that could just plow through the hedge. The problem was these were big and obvious targets, and the Germans knew that wherever there was a dozer tank, well, if you knock out that dozer tank, you trap the rest of the unit, and they still can't advance. So the solution, which as Up2 said, Hobart didn't come up with himself, but ground engineers, as part of the funny troops in that, did, was to say, okay, well, they're big hedges. All we need is big hedge cutters, right? That's all we need in order to be able to get through the hedges. So they just built big hedge cutters, and they used all the metal tank traps from the beaches. They cut them up and added these blades to the front of the tank, which was they were really low to the ground. They were hard to see. What was their name? What was their actual name? Because this isn't providing Rhino tank. That's what they were called, is Rhino tanks. Which, for some reason, we're still not... All right. I feel bad. Man, Google does not like what I'm doing. Come on. Wow, Google is not like what I'm doing. Would you just let me search? Would you just let me search? No, you're not going to let me search, are you? All right, we're going back to Brave search. Because Rhino Sherman tank. Because that's just not working for some reason. Here we go. This one around here, the Rhino Sherman tank. See how it has this little blade down here at the front? That is what we're talking about here. Because they were hard to see, and all they did was they just charged through, sheared through the hedgerows, and allowed them to advance. And because you could make tons of them, you could make absolute tons of the tanks because you had all the scrap metal, and all you had to do is quickly cut it into these hedge cutters, weld it to the front. There you go. So the Germans are sitting there watching 10 tanks roll by. None of them are dozer tanks, but they all have hedge cutters. Sherman, Stewart's, Cromwell's, Churchill's, you name it. So they're just driving down a line of the road, and they all make a 90-degree turn and charge over without the Germans being able to do anything about it. So, yeah, Hobart didn't come up with them, but his engineer crews were instrumental in getting them up and running. Of course, a lot of normal engineers were involved with it too. But I still consider them a part of the funnies group because they were in many ways a funny tank. You know what I mean?
Hobart's funnies fought all the way through the European theater, and when they finally came up to Germany, the first Allied forces to cross the Rhine into Germany did it in Hobart's duplex-drive Sherman tanks. Because Hobart's funnies in the 79th Armored Regiment were spread out amongst all the other units in the European theater, every time a unit did something special, credit was given to that unit, and the contributions by Hobart's men, and the Hobart funnies would go unnoticed and unrecognized. So in conclusion, this was a story of Major General Percy Hobart, the man that pioneered modern tank warfare, the man that trained the men that beat Rommel in North Africa, the actual inventor of the Blitzkrieg tactic, and one of the most important architects of D-Day and the Allied advance through Europe. In the pages of history, he is a victim of his own success because everywhere he wasn't was such a catastrophic shit show that it monopolized the spotlight, and everywhere he was, things went so smooth that it wasn't worth reporting, so he went unnoticed. When people think of tank warfare in World War II, way too many people think of Erwin Rommel and Heinz Guderian, when in reality they should be thinking of Percy Hobart, and I hope this video helps with that. Thanks for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang, out.
Okay, Hobart's Funnies. That was another good one. Oh, there's that again. So I think I've added what I was going to add. Yep, go for it, Spartan. We just saw multiple examples this stream for why you would want to use Brave. So good for Brave, but yeah, I think the funnies are neat tanks. They really set the stage for a lot of specialist tanks. Like I said, the bridge tank on its own is just flat out used. You know, the only difference now is which model we put the bridge on to tow it, but it's basically remained unchanged this whole time. Trying to think if I have anything else to add or if that is it. I think that that's it. I've already added quite a bit because of my little rambles there. Yay. Yeah, I don't think I have... Oh, no, that's not what I want. Anything else to add. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take a short break and then we're going to move on to Stardew Valley. Yeah, just trying to think. No, I will see you guys shortly. I'm going to close this out and then get some music going for you guys so you have something to listen to while I am AFK for a couple minutes. Be back shortly.